I have a request to make of the audience. Who here, and I hope somebody can do this, can tell me the name in Malay of the person who sits on top of the elephant and kind of guides where it goes? Can anyone tell me that? Besides the elephant jockey, which may be in fact the name. Is there a name? Anyone? No? Okay, I'm here to talk about mesh cities and technology and how some pretty advanced technologies affect how we use cities today. But elephants really are a good way of introducing the kind of challenges that designers have when dealing with the modern city. And think of the modern city as this massive pachyderm here, and you've got to steer it in a certain direction. If you're the artist, and this fellow we'll call the artist here, he's in the position to dictate which way this creature will move. This is the new century of design. In the old century of design, the artist didn't have this privileged position. The artist was here and dealing with the results of other people's decisions about how the city might be designed, how the city works, and which one of those two would you rather be doing as a designer, as an urban planner, as a policymaker? Certainly I know which one appeals to me. So I'm going to talk about smart cities and mesh cities in 5 parts. What will tomorrow's cities look like? What skills do designers need to build mesh cities? Why are they important? Where are the mesh cities being built today? And how do you start a mesh city? So one of the big challenges that everyone here understands is that population growth is exponential. In the time that it will take me to finish this talk today, in Delhi, the population will have increased by about 60 people. And that is a staggering amount because in 1 year, the population of Delhi will increase by over 1 million people. In 10 years, 10 million. And that's, of course, not logarithmic. The more people who come in, the faster Delhi will grow. So Delhi isn't the only city with that kind of challenge. All major cities today have to be designed to manage that kind of growth. And that kind of growth is kind of what we see the result of the second designer dealing with. Legacy systems are bringing people into cities, and the way of managing what they do in cities, how to accommodate them, hasn't really been figured out. This is an image of Egypt, and the idea is that we're talking about brands here, but brands are not this kind of thing we discover just by chance or because the scenery's great or whatever. Brands are made by you and me. Brands are made by the place we live in. In this case, an ancient city has been overwritten by the paths of people's use, and every city is like that. You know, we as designers might design a city to work in a certain way, but over time it changes, and we've got to accommodate that. In the old world, in the 20th century, we used to design iconic gateways for the way things, the way we wanted our city to be understood. This was St. Louis, Missouri's gateway over the Mississippi. The United States then was a nation of industry, of manufacturing, of moving materials down the Mississippi, and this is how they celebrated it. But it was a static, atom-based economy. The 21st century has gateways that look like this. This is Doha, an airport I went through just a few nights ago. But there are a lot of other airports around the world that do the same thing. And that same thing is they move people efficiently. They tend to all look like airplanes now, which I think is kind of interesting. We can thank Norman Foster probably for that. But they work because this is the 21st century office today. This is business class in a 777 somewhere over, this was over the Pacific. This is where work gets done today. And these are the tools that we work with. Probably everyone in this audience has one of these, and we use it more and more all the time. It's a computer with a lot of powerful tools built in, and every day more tools are added to the set of solutions we have to draw from. So when cities look like this in that industrial economy, future cities kind of look like this. We wanted to cover them, protect them with, this was Buckminster Fuller's dome for New York. Some people may know the geodesic dome, and this was his idea. It would protect New York, Manhattan from the pollution and smog of industry, and it would be this wonderful little Eden. Well, today we've gone beyond that. Cities are starting to look like this, quite literally. The top slide is tracking people using Geneva, Switzerland over the course of a few hours. And that is what their movement in the city looks like. Below that is a slide that shows it's from something called the Connect Dome project, that shows the neural pathways in the human brain. And what's interesting about this picture is you can see that there is a strong relationship between the two things, how we use the city and how it's organized, and how the brain is organized. And as it turns out, new CAT scan technologies that show the brain working in real time have revealed that the cities that we've developed over millennia, are organized in almost exactly the same way. Clearly they do different things, but the idea that they move information around, they move things around. One is moving electrical impulses in your head, and the other one is moving you and information and transit through cities. And there is a startling analog between the two. So when that's the case, cities of the future start to look nomadic, sustainable, in keeping with nature. And this is a birdhouse near where I live, and I have thought that it's a great iconic image for what we might think cities of the future become. Because as we've heard from other speakers today, we're becoming more nomadic, we're traveling more, and we want to do that without decimating, harming the earth. And in fact, what we want to do is make the earth better. Nicholas Taleb has this idea of things being anti-fragile. That's what we want to make. We want to make our world anti-fragile. So what kind of skills do designers need to do that? These are some of the things that I've done. I was influenced by Buckminster Fuller, who thought cities should be so light and do so much with as few materials as possible that you could pick up a city and move it on a blimp and put it somewhere else. So I managed to work for Boeing, where I learned how complex technologies come together in a certain way, and where doing more with less is an engineering manifesto. when you build a plane like this, clearly if you're at 35,000 feet, everything has got to work perfectly all the time, or else you're in really big trouble. And that's, when you start to think about the city that way, it becomes really interesting. And then, as an architect and urban designer, I did a project in Toronto called John Street Interactive, where I wanted everything that goes on in museums and office buildings and other buildings on the street to come to the street and inform how we use the city. This turned out to be a pretty predictive idea, and the city made something called the Entertainment District Master Plan, and Frank Gehry, who some of you may know is an eminent architect and Canadian, is doing a couple $2 billion project on this piece of Toronto that I've kind of defined as being a media street, a street where people interact with the city in ways that really hadn't existed before. Some of the MIT work, I think, is suggestive of that there's a new interactivity with the city that's evolving, and that's incredibly exciting. If anyone's been to Vancouver, False Creek, this is a sculpture that we did for Concord Pacific, which was the largest development in the world at the time, a number of billions of dollars. It was so massive it could be seen from space. We, as artists and designers, anchored one part of it and gave it a sense of place, and this has been there for about 15 years. Other digital project I was involved with, I worked with Apple to come up with a kind of navigation through the city that predated Google Street View, which a lot of you, I'm sure, have used. This was 15 years ago, and we were well ahead of our time, but it's a good way of navigating the city. And I also was kind of lucky enough to work with Sony and Motorola and the Black Eyed Peas on one of the first generation social network sites that some people have credited with launching the careers of the Black Eyed Peas. So you can either thank me or blame me, depending on how you feel. Educational things. I managed something called the Zero Prize with the World Urban Forum that tried to stimulate innovative solutions for buildings that exist in cities that are not, and where the buildings are not energy efficient. So we wanted to promote the idea that buildings could be reskinned, renovated, and made much more efficient. And that turned out to be a very successful project. So those are the skills that I've acquired for designing what I'll call a mesh city. And the reason they're important is that in a world that is becoming so massive with almost 8 billion people, cities in fact can be more personalized than they are today, rather than less personalized. And that can be achieved through design and technology, I believe. So MESH is an acronym that stands for Mobile, Efficient, Sustainable Heuristics, and I'll explain that. Mobile, we see the Internet of Things where everything in the environment is getting an IP address and can talk, can send information or receive information, can connect with us and our mobile devices, and as a result, the city is becoming a much more efficient, wired place. This is one example of a solution in Toronto that just tells you when the next streetcar or subway is coming. Spain, if anyone has been to Spain, Spain is doing some really interesting work in this area, investing a lot of money, kind of promoting the industrial sector. And one of their companies, Libelium, has done very well and is now in California. And this is an image of what they see the modern city evolving to. Efficient means cities allow you to do more with less. That, for example, in this map of Vienna, there's a real-time system that tells you where to go to avoid congestion on the road. Of course, Bill Mitchell's city car was one of my kind of inspirations. Mr. Mitchell advised the ITVC where I was director, and he's since passed away. But he was a leader in smart city thinking. And then we use technology to give buildings and cities and streets a nervous system that tells us the state of that place and thing, and with that information we can modify it, find out where things can be improved, and we do. Subtle means in complex systems, if they're well designed, they disappear. So if, for example, you take a commuter train in Kuala Lumpur out to the suburbs or out to another district, if you do it every day, even though that's a complex thing, it tends to disappear if it's very reliable. So that is a subtle technology. Algorithms that allow cars like zip cars to be available to users on a kind of a predictive basis are subtle technologies as well. So has anyone used like a zip car or one of these cars you can just get every day? I'm not sure if they're here or not, but the way they were designed, the CEO of Zipcar was an ex-aviation person, and he brought that demand technology from the aviation sector to the car rental sector and revolutionized how cities work that way. Subtle systems protect you when you're driving, and there are also systems, economic systems, that allow you to continuously enhance your location through things like, there's a great system in the US that allows you to put investment in kind of ecological, like solar cells, for example, for your house. It will forward you the money to do that, and it becomes part of your tax base over time, so you can pay it back over 20 years. It's a very efficient way of doing that, of enhancing people's homes and making them more energy efficient, and it's also very subtle. And then finally, heuristics. What are the rules of thumb we use to make cities better? We have to balance the old and new in modern cities, and if we can use certain kinds of technologies or crowdsourcing, we can identify problems as they occur and then take steps to fix them. I'm going to give you a case study of one thing that we did that worked very well. Will anyone put up their hand who's been to Toronto? Work with me. Okay, so we have some people who've been to Toronto. It's a great city, modern city. However, the transit system there was slow to adopt new technologies that would make it easy for people to know when the next streetcar was coming. So we used kind of the public pulpit to embarrass the city in a way by saying we challenged them to improve how the TTC, the Transit Commission website, worked. And we did that through the use of kind of standard media like newspaper, but the real impetus were things like micro-publishing, like blogs, which reached a bunch of young people who use the subway, but who were kind of, we can call them geeks. They wanted to use their ability to program to come up with better ways of using the city. So we made this challenge, and much to our surprise, in 14 days, we had thousands of people involved who gave us hundreds of suggestions of how to improve the city. 30 days later, we were sitting down in a hotel conference space with city politicians, the senior management of the TTC, and a couple of hundred young people, all of whom were working together to come up with new ways of dealing with the problem. What happened was that it was so successful that Harvard Business Review called it the best new business idea of 2008, I think. And it changed the way the city provided its data for people to use and to develop on. So where are mesh cities today? There are two approaches to building wired smart cities. One is greenfield. You find a place and you build it from scratch. The probably most public version of this is Master City. It's now about a $20 billion project designed by some very good designers and engineers. It's probably the most successful, but I think there are a lot of issues with it. The next most popular or most identified is Songdo in Korea. It is about $40 billion project, driven by public-private partnerships with a U.S. developer and some also Cisco Technologies, who are doing the wiring for the city, and the Korean government. The better approach, though, as far as I'm concerned, is that you take what you have and make it better. And there are models for this. Paris. How many people have been to Paris? Give a few. It's an amazing city, and it wasn't always organized the way it is now with its grand boulevards. It was a very constrained, tightly built city that had all kinds of problems with disease like cholera, and they decided we're just going to change the way the fabric works. So a designer, Haussmann, put these boulevards through and rationalize how the city, you could move through the city, the kind of political strata of the city. It was hugely unpopular, but today it makes Paris so very successsul. Rio in Brazil is another city that's using new technologies to take a very complex urban fabric that's there, and rather than changing it wholesale, they're doing subtle things with urban design, but they're also wiring the city and making it smarter. And this is kind of like a control center for Rio, and it's proving to be very effective. They like to say that if there's a problem in the city, they'll know about it in 30 seconds and do something about it in 5 minutes. So that's really interesting. And that really relies on this Internet of Things connectivity that we see cities being woven into cities more and more. And then New York City, under Mayor Bloomberg, has made the decision to make all its kind of civil data available to developers, and the results has been truly spectacular in that it's created a whole nascent industry of people who are developing these things, and then those people are exporting them around the world. So as a result of his choice, other cities are becoming smarter, more efficient as well. And then there are cities who have worked over the last couple of decades to have good governance and good planning. And if anyone is a cyclist, like I am, in most cities, if you go the wrong way down a one-way street, you'll get a ticket, or somebody will try to run you over. But in Copenhagen, they say, hey, that's great. It's one way except for cyclists. You can go the wrong way down the street. And that represents a kind of policy of smart city design that is critical. It's not just about technology, it's about making good decisions as well. You can do this for your city, Kuala Lumpur. You just have to make sure that the city and its citizens are wired and connected and have state-of-the-art technology that they can build on. You have to build your city using the highest levels of energy efficiency standards like LEED. You've got to make your infrastructure and your policies subtle in that they anticipate future needs and facilitate them, make it easy for people to build the city, to make it a better, let's call it a better brand. And then finally, you've got to engage in continuous improvement. Cities always need fixing. They always will need fixing. And what we want to do is get citizens involved in the loop of telling the people who guide and govern the city what needs to be fixed. So the world needs more mesh. We have to have happy elephants. Please join us. We have an iPhone app that you can download if you are an iPhone user, and help us make a difference. Thank you.